Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Janine, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Good, good. I decided to change my background this week.
Very nice.
This is one of my pictures. I took it from the Freedom Tower 2 years ago.
Oh, that's great.
Now, I just also wanted to see if having the beach scene was contributing to those sounds we were hearing last week.
It came with the waves, you think?
I don't know. I have no idea because nothing seemed to make it stop, And then Judy had it on, so it could have been either one of us.
Yeah, I'm going to try to probably mute most people or ask everybody to mute themselves until they're going to talk, just to kind of keep some sort of order.
Makes sense. I agree. I'm only going to be able to stay on until 7:30 tonight.
Yes, I did get your email. What more fascinating meeting do you have?
Nothing's more fascinating, but I'm the vice president of Wynwood's board here, and we have a concrete replacement proposals for our board meeting tonight, and I want to make sure I don't miss that because I want to make sure that project happens.
Absolutely.
So, a lot of times what they move them. Every other month we have them on Tuesday. So try because until our property manager retires, we can't change the night. So, and they usually do it on like the second Thursday of the month. So when he retires, we'll probably switch it around a little bit. So
right.
Like that anymore.
And that's going to be a Zoom meeting for you guys?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So we have that, and I got a master on Monday night, and it's like George is trying to connect.
Yeah. He has been for a little bit now, so I'm afraid he might be having some problems, but.
Hey, George. Hi, George.
Not muted.
I'm still a couple of minutes early anyway, so.
We are. I just wanted to log on as soon as I could to make sure I was ready.
Makes sense, yeah.
Do you know if there any word on the pool?
Well, that's the thing. Everybody's just holding on the end of their seats, waiting for the state to make up their minds.
Right.
We're going to be ready. I know that somebody told me that Knollcrest wasn't going to open their pool this year. But
honestly, I am a Knollcrest member, and I just found that out, and I was like, what? But I think ours had more to do with, I don't think they felt it was worth paying the lifeguard for the few amount of people that went.
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys are scheduled. The main pool is scheduled for its inspection next Tuesday. So, everything on our end should be.
I'm glad you told me that because I didn't know that. That's great. So I'll confirm that with my property manager. So Hills Village North is being inspected on Tuesday?
The main pool is being inspected on Tuesday.
Now, when you say the main pool, you mean on artillery, right?
Yes, 25 artillery.
Yeah, good. Okay. Yeah, that's I don't know what they're doing on Hills Drive, but I can find out from Lisa.
Yeah, their permits are in. They just have to give us a date that they want us to come. But, usually before Memorial Day, it's not a problem. Yeah. We get there and we do it. But everything they need to have in is. So, that's a good sign.
And we've got the whole pool ready to go. The only thing I've got to put out a couple more chairs, but we're going to put out probably maybe about half the furniture or something like that to keep it farther apart.
Right. To go with the distancing makes sense.
So I may even mention that tonight, with this group, before I go off, because, as an answer to one of the things that we're doing, it's Hills Village North wants to open the pool. Everybody wants it. I've been getting questions about it, and it just means that we have to open it with some distancing, and I'd rather do that than not open it, so.
And listen, if we have to figure out a way, not that people have to make appointments, but if there's something that we have to do, odd or even days,
Mm-hmm.
I think people would rather have access some of the time than not at all.
Oh, yeah. And to be honest with you, I also think a lot of people are going to be sheepish about coming, so I'm not overly worried about it.
I agree with that too, yeah.
So.
George, if you're there, you can unmute. I see your little microphone still muted, and if you're not actually there. I'm not sure yet.
I know that Lisa keeps a piece of electrical tape over her laptop camera when because it's as a second means of making sure that she's not being seen unless she's ready.
Yeah.
So that's her work computer that she uses. I actually just got this is a new camera. I just got it a couple of weeks ago, like a Logitech webcam
Right.
desktop, because I hate using my phone for these meetings. Pain in the neck,
Well, the phones, I think, I mean, if you're one or two people, it's not bad, but anything more than that.
Yeah. Well, and Tom Collins last week, I mean, he was using his phone, and I kept rotating it before he started up. I'm like, dude, you're making me seasick. I mean, I was doing that too. To his defense, when I was first
right, when you first get used to it.
Yeah, exactly. So, when does it actually start recording?
Unfortunately, now.
Okay. All right.
We are live.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have said that. Yeah, as soon as I log on, it starts.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I didn't think, but I
That's
probably should let everyone know that.
Yeah. Or if there's a way to clip it out, like, just so like you get started at like 7 o'clock, so that people don't have to like scroll forward in the video when you post it up on the website,
I could certainly ask,
Yeah.
our IT person. Okay,
Yeah, not a
there's
big
Colin.
deal. Yeah.
No, but, it would make more sense to just have it start right from the get-go.
Yeah. Hi, Colin. He's got on mute. Yeah.
Yeah.
There he is. Long time no hear.
I was going to say about 40 minutes, right, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Nice to see you again.
You too.
Oh, look at Jeff's background. I like that.
Yeah, I took this on a visit to the Freedom Tower about 2 years ago, but it'll be 2 years in July.
That's cool.
My cousin came up from Florida, and my friend Sean, and 3 of us went over there on the last minute. Hey, Frank.
Connecting.
Here comes
I
Scott.
was friends with a guy who was he worked on antennas and towers for a cellular company.
Mm-hmm.
He took pictures for me from the tower that was on top of the World Trade Center.
Oh, okay.
It is like your heart will stop. You're like, I could never do that job. I would never get up that high.
I remember going up there. And I used to go up all the time to the old Trade Center. The observation deck was in the South Tower, and then the restaurant was in the other one. But I remember one day it was windy, and we were up on the roof. And normally I didn't have issues with things like that. But the one day, and even inside the building, in the window area, I didn't. But that one day, I was on the roof, when you go up the escalator to the top, and it was windy out. And I looked at the other building swaying independently. I'm like, okay, this is not for me. Yeah. Well, I mean, like being on the roof was a problem. But once I was down inside the building, not so much. And then I've probably gone on about, 500 airplanes in my life, and that's not a problem. Helicopters and stuff like that, but
But being up there at that day, I'm sure put it in perspective. That's funny.
Exactly. So, see, Frank, you're blocking your picture again.
You know what? He looks like a judge in that picture.
It does. You do. It's like a cover of an album.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, somebody pointed out earlier today. It's a 20-year-old picture, which is really great.
The best of Frank Banish.
Oh my God. I got to tell you, I cannot stand looking at myself on these Zoom meetings. It just makes me kind of sick. It's not like I testified in court yesterday, so I did the whole deal. But the whole time I'm looking at myself, thinking, how did you turn into this? When did?
Oh, jeez.
It's just amazing.
With my uncut and unbarbered hair for like 2 months. So.
Yeah. Oh my God, I've got wings. I look like Bozo.
Wings.
I'm serious. Horrible.
Speaking of airplanes, right?
I have friends call me Paulie Walnuts from The Sopranos.
Oh,
because my gray.
You don't have as much gray.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Nick, how are you?
Hey, Nick.
Good, thanks. How are you? How's everybody?
Good.
Hey, Nick.
We got Colin Walnuts over in the corner.
Cloudy and cold out there all of a sudden.
It's supposed to be
nice
88.
warm day.
We got a night 81
tomorrow.
Yeah, we got one
Yeah,
night.
That's
tomorrow.
fantastic.
Then we'll have like
That is
7
floating.
days in.
That's awesome. Tom's head was floating in the San Francisco Bay. There you go.
I like that.
Hey, Lou.
Evening, Lou. There's Scott.
How are you, Lou?
Scott in the
Look at
shadows.
Tom.
Hey, Scott.
Hi, guys.
And Tom, you're muted, but hello. Hey, Carol. Click on your microphone, Carol. You're muted.
Okay, I'm
There you go.
unmuted.
There you are.
Now you're unmuted. There you go.
Unmuted.
Tom, you too. There you go.
Now you can pull us together into a cohesive group.
There you go. Hi, Tom.
Yeah.
Hi,
I only have
everybody.
one so far that I don't know who it is. Someone, I guess, that could be from the public. I guess we can ask later when that time comes. They're muted for now, but there's only
Okay.
one person so far.
Gotcha.
Okay.
The weekly
And
episode of
we
the
still
Brady
have
Bunch.
Anna, Rich.
Brady Bunch.
Exactly. Yep.
I'm down the shore.
Yes, you are.
Good for you, Carol.
Yes, you are. Yeah, that I thought it didn't look like the Four Oaks kitchen.
No, it didn't.
All right. How's everything at the house, Carol?
It's okay. It
Yeah.
needs the usual, opening stuff, but everything's okay. So
All right.
that's all that matters.
That's right. Well, he's saying, the governor's saying that beaches are supposed to be open by Memorial Day. So,
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
heard
Right.
that today. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of things aren't open down here. It's very strange.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I brought my own food because I wasn't sure whether I could get in any groceries. So
I'm smart. Mary, you're on mute.
Unmute, Larry. Oh, yeah. Be like the adults on Peanuts, right? Wah, wah, wah,
Right,
wah.
exactly.
Good evening, everyone. First off, let me just say, Colin, I was talking to Robin before. There is a bucket of food in the pantry right now. Crazy.
Yes,
I've never seen
yes.
it. And
We've
not
got
only
good
the food,
supermarket.
but there's also that there's about $4,000
Hey,
of
Tim.
gift certificates coming down.
Amazing.
Wow.
That's great. That's
Amazing
fabulous.
that's
generosity.
good. That's really good.
That's
We
great.
had one donation
That's incredible.
yesterday, it was $2,500 in gift cards.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
And I guess tomorrow, Jackie Rogers will bring some more stuff over from Hills Village North. Probably continue to keep doing that too.
You and her husband brought over
Yeah.
bag after bag last week. It was amazing.
Mhm.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
Great. Really
I
great.
heard that if Anna's on, that she dropped off some vegetables, which is, a lot of these folks aren't getting fresh vegetables. That's awesome.
It was great. Can't thank her
That's
enough.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
In a couple of weeks, we'll have the farmer's market, speaking of fresh vegetables.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
This year I can actually go to it because I can walk.
Good. That's right. That's right.
I do have
Larry, what
two
is the
people
plan
now.
for the farmer's market? Is it going to be like before, or have you thought about it yet, or what?
Yeah. Maybe just a little bit of thought was gone into this. The layout is going to be a little bit different. We're going to take the whole left side. So it's not just that one half will be vendors. The vendors will be throughout that whole oval, that whole circle. We're going to space all the vendors out. Parking will all be to the right, and we'll be queuing folks up and letting them through with an eye towards social distancing. There'll be a one-way, there'll be an entrance and an exit, and the traffic pattern will be folks come in this way, you'll leave that way. We'll be promoting advanced pre-orders so that, if you want your pickles or your Allsteed or your soup, whatever, you can just go and pick up if you want to order in advance. You don't have to, but that's one option. And we've got a lot of vendors. So we're actually thinking that we're going to have a fairly robust, robust market.
Right?
That's
We
great.
still have
That's
Anna
great.
and Rich who
Wonderful.
haven't come on yet. But I have two people who I
Okay,
just have phone numbers. Tom, they're both muted right now. Should I unmute them and ask them who they are, or should we wait till public comment, or?
Wait till public comment, but it might be your board members with a different phone, you know? But I don't think they would
last
probably
week
be
they were
on
both-
remote
We
anyway.
had them both video, so I
Okay,
would have assumed that they were going to do video again. No, neither of them, I mean, Rich and Anna both have video, but
Mhm.
Well, there's the
Um,
chat session. If they're on, they could use the chat to let you know if it's them.
okay, great. Well, whenever you want to start, let me know. As Rich and Anna come, I can always let them in as we proceed.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's do a roll call then.
Okay. Start with roll call. Mayor Jacobs?
I am here.
Mayor Jacobs? Sorry. Committeeman
Here.
Hickey? Mr. Trackoff? Mr. Travellini?
Here.
No, he's not. Mr. Roselius?
Here.
George is here. Oh, unmute, George.
We're just here.
Here, George? Mr. Leonard?
I heard him.
Here.
Mr. DeVine? Mr. Zupnik?
Present.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, but I see you, Scott. Mr. Walter?
I am here.
Come Rich and Anna. And Miss Chairwoman Gutschall?
Here.
Okay, Ms. Ora? Rich and Anna, we were taking roll call, so if you unmute for 2 seconds, Ms. Urbana?
Present.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Travellini?
Present. Present.
Thank you. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk and sent to the Bernardsville News and the Courier News and to all subscribers, and posted at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on January 16th, 2020. Flag
Okay,
salute?
where's our flag? Yeah, you got your flag?
Larry's got one. Use Larry's flag,
Yep,
yeah.
behind Larry.
Behind Larry? Okay, we'll use that one. That's good.
Okay.
Oh, Jeff doesn't have a
We're-
flag. We
but
need Larry.
we're not pledging allegiance to you, Larry.
So if everybody unmutes, and we can do the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
I
to the flag of
allegiance to the flag of the United States of
the
America,
United States of
to the
America
republic
and to the republic
for which it
To the
stands,
republic
which stands
which it
one
stands,
nation,
one nation,
under
nation,
God,
under God,
Under
God,
God,
indivisible,
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 Liberty and
with
justice
liberty.
justice.
and justice for all.
That was
That was
terrible.
absolutely horrible. That was way worse than last time.
That was pretty poor. That was
was
pretty
terrible.
poor.
A choir we are not.
It was bad.
A choir we are not.
I think there's a little bit of a delay on the Zoom. I think that's part of it, but you know,
Yeah, sure, I'll take that as an
There
excuse.
definitely is.
there you go. That's my story. I'm sticking with it.
All right, we don't have any homework tonight, so we can go right to our discussion with our new business. So Who wants to start us off? Mayor, you want to do that, or somebody else?
Sure. Does public comment go first?
We could do public
Absolutely,
comment.
I will.
Yes. Okay, let's do that.
I will unmute
Is there anyone?
the two people that I have.
Okay. Okay, is there anyone in the public who had?
Is there anyone who wishes to have public
Yes.
comment?
Don't hear anybody.
No? The two numbers that we have, no one's responding.
Janine, this is Lou.
Okay.
Did you call me in roll call?
I did, Lou.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, one of those numbers is, so Lou's on video and Lou's on a phone?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Brian Haggerty. I'm the other number. I have no comments. Thank you. I'm Brian Haggerty. It's a mystery number. No comments.
Mystery number.
Thank you, Mr. Haggerty.
Then that would be it. Our only public person was Mr. Haggerty, and he has no comment.
Okay, all right. Well, then we will go to our discussion.
Okay, so, Carol, you want me to lead off with this?
Yes, I think it should. I think you're the one who promoted this, and I think we need to have you start us. We can.
Okay, so what I've been thinking about at Township Committee, and I raised this at the last Township Committee meeting, and since we had that Township Committee meeting, the Land Use Board has met the first meeting that I attended, and now we've got the second meeting, and we'll be reconvene on Monday. So the idea that I
can hardly hear you, Larry.
All right, let me. Is this a little bit better?
Everybody should mute. Everybody should mute but the mayor.
Yeah. Okay. So at the last Township Committee meeting, one of the assignments to each committee member was to go back to the boards and boards that they are liaisons to, committees that they're liaisons to, as well as to many of our professionals and other organizations, and to start looking at how we can help our residents and our business residents in anticipation of a reopening. And you know, I fully envision that whatever reopening that comes our way is going to be a gradual one, and it's going to affect some of our business a little bit differently. You know, the retail one way, the ones at the shopping centers a different way, the professional spaces another way, the restaurants in a different fashion, and it may also depend on how they're located, how they operate, how physically they're set up. But what I wanted to do was to have each committee within its area of expertise, right? So subject matter expertise, Health Commission may be restrictive in their warnings as to how a reopening should go for a business. A land use board might be permissive and restrictive, right? There might be concerns that the land use board recommends to the Township Committee that these might be things that we would be willing to accommodate businesses, and there's some warnings that we may have as we go through the reopening and going too far. So at that same time, I had received an email from one of the managers at Delicious Heights proposing a outside dining at Delicious Heights. And I thought that was actually a good example of the types of activities that may lend themselves to reopening. First off, to accommodate social distancing to the extent outside dining can take some of the pressures off inside spaces, allow folks to spread out a little bit more. You know, and then I was thinking about sidewalk sales, something that we've permitted by special use permits in the past, as well as some other, that's my computer falls down for a second, as well as some other options. And it was on the call we had last week where Judy said, you know, by the way, special use permits are something that that the Township Committee does review and approve based upon some comments that we get from our professionals, primarily Paul and Steve Dill from Fire. And so, I thought that maybe what we could do is we could start listing some special use permits and almost categorize them and be in a position to offer to the Bedminster community, here's some special use permits that you may find valuable to your business as you open up. And so to me, the Delicious Heights was an example, but it's a decent idea to walk through that and see, hey, it's outside dining, which we don't really have in Bedminster, and I'm not necessarily sure of why that is, but we don't have it. Does this present an opportunity to accommodate social distancing, at the same time giving a little opportunity for some of our businesses, namely the restaurants, and let's go from there. And so, essentially the assignment for everyone, including Janine, was to brainstorm, and let's, continue the brainstorming at tonight's session. So that's essentially the, the idea. And I'm glad we're all together here and everyone's well, and that we've got this opportunity to bounce around some ideas.
So you'd rather have a proactive approach rather than waiting to hear what their needs are, or maybe doing a little bit of an outreach to the different businesses to see what they might want or need?
There used to be the Bedminster Business Association, the BBA, and Lou, you were a member, right? I think Lou was a member. I think there were some other Bedminster businesses that were members of that association.
That was my baby. I was president of that for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was a member.
So Scott certainly familiarity with it, but BBA no longer exists. So Tim, there is no voice.
Okay.
There is no voice for those businesses. So to the extent that we can help them, because they may not be thinking of these issues, right? If we're going to wait on them, then they may not know that these opportunities are even there for special use permits.
So we've got to let them know.
But that's what I was thinking.
Kind of outreach.
Should we contact them? Contact our businesses? Let them know that we're thinking about this and what might be offered?
Well, for example, I do think that the Bedminster Township website, some of the social media platforms out there are a way of getting that that information out there, that this is something that the Township Committee is considering. I've been here just coming, so when I came to Town Hall today, I was also advised that Trattoria Mediterranea may be coming in with a special use permit for outside seating as well. So that is, I want to say, I don't want to say it's a standard, but it's something that we could consider. We could come up with some structure for how those special use permits, how the application should be made, how they should be viewed. And that's just on one issue, right? Whether it's special use permits for sidewalk sales, or as I said before, or signage, right? So if you drive around town right now, there's a heck of a lot of information about how businesses are taking orders with the governor's executive order 142 that was issued, actually I have it right here, which gets rid of the ban on non-essential construction. That was an executive order 122, but at the same time also allows non-essential retail to offer curbside pickup. So this is something that is, brand spanking new, and have we considered how the Bedminster retail, not the non-essential retail, so the non-supermarkets, how that non-essential retail can accommodate curbside as the first entry into a reopening?
So, Larry, two things. One, I don't know if you saw, but the mayor in Piscataway issued their own EO about outside dining for 120 days. It's permitted this week. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that. We don't issue EOs in Bedminster because one of the things that you'd need to do to issue an EO is to have, I believe, you need to have the emergency declaration first. So that emergency declaration comes from our OEM coordinator, that's Zach Rubin. We haven't issued the emergency declaration. I think my understanding is that's the only way that you can do EOs. But it's essentially take that idea and run with it. That's where we are now.
Right. So they said for the next 4 months, they're willing to extend outside dining to all restaurants in town, which I thought was an interesting way of doing it. I'm not sure it works for us given the space limitations on most of our restaurants.
Right.
But certainly they were open to the idea. The other thing I was thinking of in the last week is some sort of hybrid between what was in the governor's executive order, which is curbside pickup with advanced planning and notice and essentially scheduled pickup. And most of our like true retail stores in town are very sort of hands-on customer service, right? You go into the hardware store and you go to the desk and you say, I'm looking for these things. And they walk you over to those things and then you bring them back to the counter and you pay for them. If they could do some sort of outside cash register and a runner, right? So not quite a sidewalk sale, but also something where you didn't have to go inside as a transition to a more normal, I don't know how in the King Shopping Center we would be able to keep people apart from each of the stores, right? If we get people congregating on the sidewalk, but sort of in terms of a next step transition, it might be a way to bridge the gap.
Yeah, I think those are great ideas. And speaking of great ideas, Janine, are you taking notes?
Yes, I'm taking notes, but I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Because I don't want to miss these. I don't want to miss these pearls. So Anna, those are great ideas.
Right.
What Piscataway is doing, and I like that idea of. I think actually I do think that both shopping centers, both the one on Washington Valley and the King Shopping Center, do lend themselves to what you just described. You've got the canopy. You've got a parking lot that people can wait in their cars and come in. That and I think that's a great idea.
Right, get a text message when your order is ready. Something where it's not quite as scheduled as what they're envisioning come Monday.
Larry?
Along those lines too, Jack. Oh, okay. I was just thinking about the salons and the hair cutting places. I don't know if we can open them yet because they don't have the curbside capability unless they set up a chair, maybe one chair out there. But I know that a couple of them do have apps that lets you know how long the wait is, and maybe that something like that can be used to their advantage to help, to keep people out of there and in their cars or something until they're ready to have people come, to the chair, whether it's inside or outside. So something to think about for them, because I know that a lot of our businesses that are not essential are hair cutting places and nail salons and stuff like that. Something to think about.
No, that's good. Right now, those personal services are still closed.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So,
we're going to be getting there hopefully at some point when stuff we're going to need to think about that as well. So.
Yep. No, but you're right. And that, by the way, that's part of this conversation. So it's not just what's happening on Monday with curbside. This is, look,
down the line.
You may not want to hear it, but we're going to be dealing with it for months.
The future.
gonna be a while.
the
Yeah, it's
future.
gonna be a while, yeah. Mhm.
Well, I experienced it
Looks
when
like
I
Rich
went to
has
the
something
bank
to
the
say.
other day. I thought
Raise
the
your
bank
hand
was,
mode, so I'm raising my hand. I'm raising my hand because Zoom doesn't have a raise your hand mode. So I just wanted to
Oh, well,
back
I
up
was
a
in-
second, because in preparation for this meeting, I took some notes and I was really kind of focused on our mission as a planning board and a zoning board versus the health department's mission and the various other committees in town who have other purposes. So, you know, I kind of wish Frank was here because he could probably do a more articulate job in defining the mission of planning. But
Frank is here.
if the things that we consider
You
have
think
to
I'm
do
not
with
here, Rich? Wait a minute.
what?
Frank's
I'm
here.
here.
I don't see you, Frank.
Yeah.
You're just video.
Frank's
You're
there.
just video. All right, so maybe you can help me out
you're
then, Frank. I
seeing-
don't see your
you're
face.
seeing it all. You're seeing. That's okay. You're not missing anything, Rich. What were you asking?
So again, the things that we deliberate are use variances, density, intensity. And again, we're trying to channel development in the directions that we all believe are, you know, to the general good as opposed to a detriment to, you know, the master plans that we've, you know, carefully prepared
Yeah,
over the years.
that's our job, right?
So rather than get into the practicalities of, you know, how someone might execute their, you know, their business and try to turn a profit or keep a few more people employed, you know, my thought was just to stay focused on what about density, intensity, and use? Are we prepared to relax, you know, perhaps only temporarily, and focus our guidance on those kinds of things? So where we restrict uses, which uses do we want to consider permitting? Where we restrict density, what kind of concessions are we willing to make to allow people to convert parking lots that might otherwise create density and traffic issues for another purpose? With respect to intensity, where we might have, you know, 100 people assembled, now we want to permit 50 people assembled. So I took to heart the idea that what is the planning board and the land use board's charge, and focusing on those aspects of what people might be looking for from us, or what kind of relaxation of restrictions we might be prepared to make. So going back
That's a good
to
approach.
uses, for example. So going back to
I
uses,
think
for
if I could
example,
stop you for one
what type
second,
of
Rich.
retail? Sure.
I think if we're trying, if our subject tonight is what can we do to respond to these unique circumstances we have right now, then the kinds of things that Larry was suggesting probably are just the right medicine. When you start to implicate some of those other bigger issues, and there are issues we need to talk about for sure, don't get me wrong, I'm not sure that that's what we're talking about tonight. But I can be corrected on that. I had the feeling that we were talking about whether or not there were ways to accommodate the needs of businesses. You know, one of the things I've been impressed with is we order out, we pay by credit card, we put the tip on with the credit card, and they walk out and hand this to me in my car. That seems like something that could work for a lot of different businesses, where they can hand you something if you pull into the right spot. But are we, Larry, maybe since Larry's kind of set the agenda here, are we getting a little far afield, or am I wrong in slowing Richard down there?
No, well, look, and this is why I said each commission within their subject matter expertise. So when we consider applications, someone could come in and say, would want to have outside seating, and the planning board, or serving as a POA, would put questions. How is that going to work? How is it going to look? How is that going to affect the way that area operates? So to me, the outside dining is a nice example of something that sort of, you know, it's definitely has planning board elements to it, as does sidewalk sales, as we head into the issue of curbside pickup. Curbside pickup may not be available for many of the Bedminster residents, and to some extent this touches upon some of the planning elements of the board, as well as some comments that Paul might have. Paul might say, look, you can't block up 202 or 206. If a car is going to pull up, that could be a problem. Do they have adequate size? What are the considerations that should be going into that? And those, to me, are very similar to the way that the board would consider any application. And, this way there could be advice that the planning board, as a group that usually does consider all these elements, could give those parameters. Because if it comes to the township committee, right, as far as I know, I believe Delicious Heights may have already come in with an application for the special use permit. And Paul, I'm not sure if you even had the opportunity to go through it yet.
If I could just jump in for a second. Yeah, I did look at it today. I sent some comments to Judy. And let me go down, let me tell you what those comments are, because I think for the most part, they would apply to anybody who's going to be coming in for a special use permit for outdoor dining. I don't think they're necessarily unique to Delicious Heights, but in some ways they are. And then we can talk about the other different categories of special use permits, because I think from the 10,000 foot level, if we're talking about things in the intermediate term, these are all going to be special use permits and not ordinance changes and not site plan approvals.
Correct.
Because ordinance changes and site plan approvals are permanent. We're talking about something that's temporary. So what I said on Delicious Heights, they brought an application, outdoor seating, north of the main restaurant, and blocking the access from Hillside Avenue. Okay, that's generally how it's laid out. They show a circulation pattern coming in from Main Street, and it is what it is. But these are my comments. First one was, if approved, the permit should be for the 2020 season. It doesn't go on forever. Secondly, there should be no outside amplified music or PA system. And this was specific to the request that Delicious Heights had, and I think this is good for Delicious Heights and maybe other places as well. As requested, the outdoor seating should close at 8 p.m. because of the nearby residences. I don't know if anybody was on the board when Willie's Tavern came in for their expansion before the then Board of Adjustment, but there were probably 15 to 20 objectors filling the room every time we had a meeting on that. Very concerned about the noise that was associated with that, with the restaurant. So I think in the larger picture, we need to be sensitive to that. The next comment was, the applicant should state whether or not there'll be outdoor heating equipment. We've all been to outdoor cafes where they have the infrared heaters or the gas mushroom type heaters. And the reason why that's important is it means it extends it into November, December. Is that really what we want to have? Next, I said there should not be any tent or cover over the seating area. Why is that important? That's probably more germane to Delicious Heights in that, and it goes into the access issue that I'll get to next. But if there's a tent or a cover, it requires different permits and approvals from the construction department for those tents. Next, I said the applicant should clarify if the tables and chairs will be brought inside at night, or are they going to be left outside? That's hard to say. Will there be any umbrellas on the tables? If so, they need to be secured at night. Then the last comment I had was about the access. I discussed this with Steve Dill, the fire official. And I said it's recommended that the barrier across Hillside Avenue driveway be easily movable and not made of heavy planters. Their proposal was to put large planters out there. I think it should be easily movable. The tables are easily movable because in the unlikely event that emergency access is needed, you can shove those out of the way pretty quickly and be able to get any emergency equipment in there. And Steve felt he was comfortable with that as a comment. So in the context of outdoor dining, those are the kind of things that I look at when I see these things come in. So I just want to talk about outdoor dining for a minute, and then we can go to what Larry talked about with the curbside pickup.
Paul, it's Lou. I have a question. If we're going to allow outdoor dining and we're going to take part of a parking lot or some area, we're going to lose parking. Should we, have the amount of parking proportionate to the amount of tables and chairs we're allowing? Because that's some issue where there's not enough parking.
I think what's going to happen, because this is a temporary circumstance, Lou, I wouldn't get too wrapped into that. And the reason why I say that is because with the social distancing requirements, the density of customers is going to be lower. And frankly, if you can't park, people are not going to stop. We've got the parking, whatever parking restrictions we have on the street, they can't park on the street. So they're just going to have to bypass and go someplace else. I'm frankly not overly concerned about the parking. Obviously, somebody's taking their whole parking lot and converting it to a dining area. That's a problem. I'd look at that a little more carefully. But Delicious Heights is really taking out mostly a circulation aisle and only a couple of stalls.
Guys, I recognize
Well, this is
addressing
Carol.
this because
Who's talking?
Carol, I think you are.
Looks like you are, Carol, but if
Oh,
everybody
okay.
could mute
All right,
themselves until Carol,
Yeah, I thought I heard somebody else start talking. Paul, do you have a suggestion as far as whether pickup and the dining area should be in the same place or should they be separated?
Well, they have on the Delicious Heights plan, they show a routing for the pickup that is separate from the outdoor dining area. So they have it thought out. And yeah, that would need to be on a plan that anybody brings in. Where are these drive-through pickups going to be?
Yeah, I think they should be separated. Yeah.
Yeah, they need to be done, and they've actually considered that on their plan.
One minor concern might be that I have is suppose they're dining or people are out there, and heaven forbid it should start to rain or something. Now, normally, those people could go inside the restaurant and complete their meal. But
yeah,
the whole purpose of outside dining here is that not to go indoors. So do people have to abandon their meal halfway through? Is that a reasonable thing to think about? And Paul already.
I think they get a bunch of to-go boxes pretty quick. If they have umbrellas, I think that partially handles it. I think they'll have to get, they may have, if they have umbrellas on the table, for example, that allows them to do that. Rich has his hand
Okay,
up.
if they have umbrellas.
I feel like we're
Maybe that's a requirement.
again, guys. As
ahead,
opposed
Rich.
to considering, I feel like we're evaluating an application as opposed to trying to create a framework where numerous applications can be considered. I wasn't necessarily
And
prepared.
Rich, I'll tell you why I did that. Yeah, and Rich, I just want you to understand that why I'm bringing this up. It's not because I want to talk about the specific merits of Delicious Heights. I didn't want to get off on track on that, and you're right. It's just the typical comments that I would have on any outdoor dining that comes in for a special use permit, because these will be special use permits. That's the way it needs to be done. And I brought these up and said, are there any other conditions, basically, that the planning board will, any other items that the planning board thinks we should look at when these come through? And particularly are the things that the township committee could look at, because they're the ones that are the ultimate decision makers on the special use permit.
If there's
And I think
areas
Carol
that
brought
don't
up the-
have a parking. I was going to bring up about other restaurants that might not have the space that Delicious Heights has, like Panetteras, for instance, that just has that little bit of sidewalk. So you're talking a very few tables, or would you allow them to go into the parking as well?
I think that is a site-specific evaluation on what they're going to be able to do. Some restaurants have more ability to do this than others. It's easy for Delicious Heights. It's easy for the Pluckerman Inn. It's harder
Right.
for some other places
Right.
that are in the King's Shopping Center, for example. It's hard. Little Pickles, it's easy. And they've had a
Right.
special use permit for it in the past. So these things are not that difficult. But I think,
Mhm.
you know, when Rich talks about not evaluating a specific application, and I talked about looking at general comments to add to the considerations, I think, Carol, you brought up one that is important. The drive-through and the circulation still needs to work for the pickup, and you can't just create a total
Right.
mess. And Lou brought up the comment about the parking. Yeah, there still needs to be sufficient parking, and that's an evaluation that's going to be the case-by-case basis, not the overall ideas to look at.
So for example, go ahead.
Any
Lou.
other comments?
Lou's got his hand up.
Lou has a comment,
It was
hold
you.
please.
Okay. One other consideration, Paul, that you didn't mention that I think about is the idea of egress and ingress for people. Like you don't want people jamming up, leaving and coming at the same point in time, or being in a waiting line that's so dense they're too close together. So maybe in some of the plans that can be just like the parking in one way and out the other, the eating areas can have an in one way and out the other. Ingress and egress.
Yeah, that is a good point, Lou, and you have to have the right kind of circulation, both vehicles and people. And I think a lot of this is going to be dictated by what the state says the proper distances between tables and that sort of thing are. I'm going to say the tables are going to be 6 feet apart. Something like that's going to happen. You know, I don't know what New Jersey is going to do. I just know some of the things that are happening in other locations.
Yeah, minimum amount of people at the tables too. Some are saying 4, some are saying 6 people at one table, and that's the amount of quantity. And that will also limit your parking. Hopefully cars.
So is the general consensus that we're willing to permit outdoor dining as a kind of a standard? Are we willing to consider drive-through? Are we willing to consider more and more carry-out? Leave it in a place, in a case like Panetera, Carol, where you've got a shopping center as opposed to, you know, a traditional drive-through restaurant like Burger King always wanted to be, right? You know, a standalone building is has one set of capabilities, but a shopping center does not. So it would be up to the shopping center developer to come up with something where they can promote drive-through or carry-out service in that shopping center. Whether that means, you know, directing traffic to be one-way traffic and dedicated parking spots for individual tenants of theirs, you know, that's all part of the implementation of a relaxation of standards that we may be willing to make. And that's kind of where I'm headed.
I think
so. It seems like the consensus is we're willing to consider outdoor dining, but are we willing to consider more and more carry out and more drive-through type of arrangements?
Well, I think, Rich, you bring up two things. One thing is the difference between outdoor dining and drive-through, and the difference between those two and curbside pickup, at least the way that I see them. Outdoor dining is permitted in the ordinance, or let's put it this way, it's not prohibited in the ordinance. Nobody has it because nobody's requested it as part of a site plan. Drive-through is not permitted. That's different. That requires queuing of vehicles and that sort of thing. Curbside pickup, excuse me, is somewhere in between that I think is already happening. If anybody thinks that all these restaurants are operating and nobody, you know, orders takeout and goes and grabs and goes, we're long past the point where that was purely the pizza parlor and the Chinese restaurant that did that. All the restaurants are doing it now. You can pretty much get takeout from virtually every restaurant, and people drive up, pick up their food and go. So that's actually happening. I think curbside pickup is more, it's recognized now as a thing. It's something that's occurred for years and is becoming more and more prevalent. I've noticed it because I wait in restaurants longer when I'm sitting down because the kitchen is cranking out meals for, you know, customer after customer that's not actually at a table. So I think that the drive-through, in my opinion, is something that's a site plan issue. It's a building modification issue. I would not think it would be appropriate to have a drive-through as part of a special use permit. That requires structural changes. The curbside pickup, to me, that's an operational change that you can do on site, and you just have to figure it out. As I said, in the Delicious Heights example, they have a way on their plan to show how the curbside pickup is going to work. And in looking at it, it looks like it works. If somebody else is going to come in, like Carol says, they've got to deal with outdoor seating and the curbside pickup. Otherwise, they just can't have it.
So Paul, I assume when we look at these special use permits, not we, yeah, that would be you, that's not us. You're taking into consideration the fact that with whatever social distancing guidelines, the use of the space will be by definition less dense. And so the parking requirements will be reduced too, right? Is that part of the calculation?
Well, yeah, there really is no calculation because I don't think we know what that is, but I think it's a general recognition of that's the way the world is going to be. It's not going to be as dense for quite some time. It's going to be more spread out. So there will be a lesser demand on parking. That's just the way it's going to be. And like I said, that's why I think if we're dealing with these things, it should be for the 2020 season. It's going to take time to get this all sorted out, and people are going to get used to it, and they're going to do what they're going to do. And in 2021, if we're still in this boat and they want to apply for another special use permit, they can do it again. And the value of that is it allows us to learn from anything that we screwed up this time.
I would, though, if I could, Madam Chairman, I would just kind of urge that we take a much more liberal approach to wanting outdoor dining. Outdoor dining is one of the things that attracts people to come and eat at restaurants.
Oh, I agree. I think we should think about that for maybe long term, but for now we want an immediate fix, I think, to help our immediate problem. But we can think about that for the future. And I would agree with you, Frank. I think it is an appeal.
Successful downtowns all over the country thrive on it.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Again, you know, there's places that are, you know, it becomes very normal to do it, like Delicious Heights, perhaps, or Pluckamin. But there's, you know, we have so few restaurants in town as it is, and we've lost. I mean, we lost Golden Palace, and we lost Burger King, and you know, we need more restaurants. It would be nice.
What is the typical what is the duration of the typical special use permit? 90 days, 120 days?
It's variable, but I think it's capped at a year. And I'd have to look at the ordinance, but I think if you do it 2 years in a row before you can come back a third time, you have to go for a site plan amendment. I see Larry nodding his head up and down.
So
he's on
That's
mute.
correct.
So
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Paul's right. And by the way, does the township committee can issue a special use permit for, we could say if someone comes in for a year, we can say, no, we'll give you 90 days. We'll give you 60 days. We'll, you know, it is something that is at the township committee's discretion, the governing authority, the governing board, I'm sorry, the governing body's discretion. So it may not be a year. You know, look, if you're Delicious Heights, you may not want to go through the hassle of doing this outside seating if it's going to be for 30 days. But, you know, if it's for the, you know, till September or the end of September, yeah, it might be something to work with. And then you get into the issue.
Dictate.
Right.
I think
right.
weather.
It could be weather, or if we like it, or if the town, or if we don't dislike it, then we make it to the point of, you want the heaters. All right, that's something that we can consider.
Larry, let me just go sideways for a minute because I think somebody brought it up before. How do we deal with curbside pickup on retail? And, sitting here as I think about it, we've got the two large shopping centers they've got a lot of different retails in each of those. Maybe the thing to do, and this is how we encourage it, we give a special use permit to the shopping center and they designate, 8 or 10 stalls that are numbered 1 through 10. And they say, call your store, tell them what parking stall you're in, and then they'll bring it out to you. So it's a centralized pickup area. So you don't have people waiting along the curbs. It's not technically curbside pickup, it's parking lot pickup, but it's the same thing.
I think that is an awesome idea.
Yeah, it sounds excellent. Yeah,
So
have numbered.
That's the only thing that we came out of tonight's meeting with, then it was worth it. That's a great idea. Also, what I'm going to say is the town can call, what is it? I think Colliers does the management for Kings, and I don't know, Colin, do you know who does management over at Somerset? Or whatever it's called these days?
Don't know, but I can find out.
Yeah.
I mean, someone knows the owners. I forget the owner's name, but it was Cancarella. Is that it? Oh, Tim.
Tim knows who it is.
Tim, open your mouth. Say words.
I was muted. Yeah, I know, Mike. I can call.
All right. I mean, like that's, Paul, I think that's a great idea. I mean, you just, in one fell swoop, you address a good chunk of what Anna was talking about. It still doesn't do the cash register element, which I still think that you could work that with runners, but that is definitely one component. I think that's great. And you just took out, a potential concern that may address half the retail we have in town between those two shopping centers.
Yeah, everybody else pretty much is independent and has a parking lot.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think Riccardi's is already doing that, guys. That they're not letting anybody in their store, but if you say you want, 2 gallons of eggshell, bone white, etc., you call the store in advance. You go on the, Benjamin Moore website, you pick the color you want, you call the store, tell them what you want, and every morning there's a bunch of contractors lined up there picking up paint supplies, etc., doing it strictly on a pickup basis. No one is allowed in the store, and the orders are lined up out, by the front door. So,
I thought that
the consolidated
was considered essential. So
yeah, the hardware is essential. So that's their hardware and the paint is an essential service and essential retail, so they could do that. But if we try to imagine all the retailers in that place doing it at the same time, you've got all these different areas where people are trying to pick up. And I think we can consolidate that. I think it's just going to make everybody happier.
Yeah, I went to the bank and I thought the bank was open actually, and it was closed, and I needed an inside service. So I went to the drive-in, and the drive-in said yes, they would help me, but go park, and they would text me and let me know when I could come back to the drive-in to take care of what I needed to do. And so I see it over and over again where it's, being texted, because everybody's got a cell phone. So you're being texted and sitting in the car waiting for your turn. And I also noticed that appointments are being kept, because I had blood work done. Again, I sat in the car, waited my turn to go in, and they texted me and told me I could come into the clinic to have the blood work. So it seems to be working fine, and appointments are being kept, I think, on a much regular basis than they used to be, where people just piled in and, you sign in and you get your turn an hour later. So again, that could be, I guess they're essential anyway, is medical. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't.
Okay,
Pam,
so
are you-
we've got some members. I presume that these are, we could have these endorsed by the land use board back to the committee. And so we've covered outside seating. I think the curbside, maybe curbside pickup that is applicable to, got a little feedback there. Curbside pickup for the non-shopping center.
Larry, it's Lou. We have a business. We have a business registration list in town.
Hey, Lou, do you have the audio on your computer and your telephone at the same time?
My computer wasn't working.
We're hearing
Can
you
you hear me
twice.
now?
Lou.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now we're not hearing you at all.
I think it's feeding back through somebody else's mic and speakers.
You should mute your computer, not your phone, Lou.
You may have to dial in again, Lou.
Tim looked like he was trying to say something, but he was muted.
I was. Hey, how are we going to let our businesses know that there's that they should
Mm. Did we lose the mayor?
He's muted. I think Janine keeps muting him on purpose.
There he is.
Unfortunately, we have too many people that are all on at the same time, and we're getting all the feedback, and it would make more sense if we just had one person unmute themselves when they were going to talk and then go back to mute.
Okay.
Oh,
But I don't know why Larry's not coming through now, because he's not muted.
I'm not. I'm not saying anything.
You were actually being quiet. Oh, my.
Oh,
Just a big surprise there.
For the record, she's just on the other side of that wall. I'll be right back. I'll have to go check the personnel issue.
No, stay where you are. All right. My only idea was, since Larry said I was allowed to speak, I don't know why there's feedback. I'm sorry, guys. Is that in certain towns, if you go over to Beeville, they have signs up, and they basically are these bright green signs that maybe if I use the phone instead, that show whether or not the store's open. I sent it to Larry in an email. I can certainly pull it up.
Hey, is it a chance it's Joe Haggerty? Is that your line that's getting feedback?
I haven't said anything.
It could be. I just have it on the phone.
Yeah, Janine, if you have your mic on your computer on and your phone as well, that's what's going to get things twisted up.
Our computers don't have mics or cameras. That's why I have to call in.
So you're only on your phone?
Only on the phone, but videotaping, obviously, so that I can see all of you and unmute all of you. Larry, go ahead. You tell the sign.
This is Joe Haggerty. Can anybody hear me?
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Joe.
And my feeling as zoning officer is the special use permits are going to be decided by the township committee and then reviewed by me. And if there's any kind of question, I would talk to Paul Ferrero about it. And then we would make our recommendations to the township committee for the special use permits to be issued on an individual basis.
Yeah, I think you're right, Joe. I think that's how it will work. Yes.
I may have just lost you all.
Well, Larry just started sharing his
I'm not
screen.
sure you meant to share your screen, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Hold on there, fella.
I think he actually does.
Hey, Janine, when did you send me that email?
Earlier today. Let's see. You had it up before.
Here it is. I'm pulling it up.
And then if you go down.
Okay, can everyone, is this up on this, can everyone see it?
It is, but you'd have to go down a little so you can see the actual signs from Beeville.
You need to.
So you've got the,
Double click on the email and open it, Larry.
What's that?
You need to scroll down.
Or double click on the email to open it.
I did. I'm looking at the, what do you guys see right now? Do you see my screen?
We just see your emails.
Oh, really?
We see the top of that note from Janine.
Yeah.
We see your inbox.
We don't see the attachment.
I don't know why, because I'm actually in the email right now.
Larry, you have to.
Yes, Larry, but if you look down below, it only goes down, if you start reading the text of the email, it stops after red closed, and then below that where it says yellow open, it's below the bottom of the screen. So you have to scroll down in the email itself, not down through all the emails.
Larry, you need to actually show.
That's what I've done.
You need to show a different window.
I'm looking at that right now. I don't know why this isn't showing it.
You have to share a different window, Larry. The window you're sharing right now is the one of your inbox, but the message comes up in a different window.
Oh, you've got dual screen.
Let me do a new share. Okay, let me do a new share.
Do a new share.
Here it is. You guys see this?
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you, Colin. And thank you, Paul. Okay, so here's Janine's text. And Janine, you can read it to give it some beautiful color with feeling.
It was just that, so they have these signs, theirs are all in green. They're in front of each store. Each store, it says, we're open, here's our number, or it says we're not. I thought going forward to keep everybody kind of on the same page so that they're really not obnoxious and obtrusive. Maybe you have different colors, but they still would have their numbers and what it is that they're doing, keeping all of them the same size, same print, so it's a little bit uniform. Maybe people then become used to what they're looking for. Hey, that sign is red, that building's closed. Hey, it's yellow, they're open, they do pickup and delivery. Okay, they're green, they actually are open, I can go in, but I gotta remember to wear my face mask and social distancing. Blue, I didn't know if medical buildings would be different, so if you wanted to add colors, I figured since the rainbow seems to be a pretty big symbol right now for COVID, that you could add blue, orange, and purple signs. Maybe there's blue for medical and there's something different, like Carol said, stay in your car, call us, and we'll text you when your appointment is ready. But I thought if we had signs in mind that we agreed to so that they weren't all different, kind of taking over, and maybe also something that people became accustomed to look for, it might make it a little easier. I thought in Beeville, it made total sense. It was really easy. You drove through the parking lot and you were like, oh, you're open. There's your phone number. I can call you. You're going to come out and pick this up. Great.
I think you're right, Janine. It's a visual cue, easy to read. People can't help but notice it. And in a week, everybody will know the signs.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. That's great. And I like the red, yellow, and green. That's good. Red
Smart.
is.
Basic and smart.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Janine.
So Larry, it's Tom.
On that issue of signs. So on that issue of signs, you've got the colorized, and that could be something that certainly the township committee could promote. The other thing is the temporary signs for when we do, and to the extent that we've already come out of full closure for non-essential retail, and whatever that next step is, the bane of the Park Preservation Committee and bane for many of the folks on the land use board is those temporary feather flags or banners or whatever they're called. What is that something that we want to say, hey, businesses, you need to let folks know that you're open in addition to that yellow, red, green. You can apply for a special use permit for the feather flag.
Well, Larry, I think what happens then, you may get mixed messages. I think the Burnersville standardized colors is uniform across the board. Otherwise, you get some guys with the feather flags, other ones without it. Some that they got their feather flag and the yellow sign, and the feather flag and the green sign. And I think it's just going to become confusing, not only for the general public, but just for the eye, because you're going to have stuff all over the place. I think if you have these uniform signs, then everybody knows what they mean, and it'll take a week, but people will get used to it. I'm concerned about.
I hear you, but at the same point, by the way, I do think it was Joe Haggerty's computer had the feedback, since we haven't had that since. Not a lot of our stores. So if you take, Little Pickles, we focus on Little Pickles often, but how could they do a colored poster that's really going to work for that location?
Well, maybe it's a sign like the format of an election sign, and it's.
I was just going to say a lawn sign for the businesses that don't actually have a storefront. If they can't post it in their window so that you can visibly see it, then maybe for those we allow the election lawn sign, so that there is ones that say when you drive by their complex, Little Pickles open. I mean, we don't want it to be, I agree with Paul, so that there's so many different kinds. You won't see anything when you drive by because there'll be so much.
Who was there talking?
Janine. I believe it was me, Janine.
I believe it was me.
Yeah, because all I see is the township of Bedminster.
Well, she has a lot of voices in her head, so you never know what it is.
That's the rule.
Madam Chair and Larry and everybody, this is Tom now. I listened to what everybody was talking about, and I have a couple ideas. One is it might be possible, rather than an emergency order, Larry, to have the committee issue a resolution of special use permits of a general nature that you would be willing to let everyone have. And it sounds to me like you'd be willing to let everyone have the green, yellow, and red and rainbow or blue flags, not flag sign, but sign system, and where they don't have street frontage, some sort of a placard sign on the front yard of that nature. if you did that, you would still have, I presume you still have the standard. Maybe they'd have to, I don't know where they got those signs in Bernardsville. Maybe they even got them from the town of Bernardsville, to tell you the truth. But they certainly use the same paper or some same colors. So if you did that and they complied with that, that seems like it would work in every business property. And you wouldn't have to come in for a special permit. You wouldn't have to go file a paper or do a permit request or even get a township committee meeting to have you approved. It would just be allowed, and allowed usually means people do it. Now, technically, even though we don't broadcast this, we already allow the pennant signs. We don't strongly prohibit them. So and we're not enforcing it, at least as far as I know, we're not going out there and, giving people summonses right now. So that may still continue, but I wouldn't encourage it unless you want to encourage it. But if you just leave it as it is,
on that temporary basis, that they're going to need the ability to market themselves, and I just think that it's going to be dire. And the fact that a store may be open for pickup or the pizzeria or something else, just to get, hey, don't forget about us, guys. We're here. We're back.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure Joe has the ability to just look the other way and let people do the banner signs and the flag signs that they already do without us heavily looking the other way. So, in other words, we do allow a lot of banner signs, and we don't really strongly prohibit flag signs yet. Mm-hmm. So, but this is just an idea that the ones you really like, just issue a resolution of special use permit for signs of the green, red, and yellow, and even the lawn one when they don't have visibility on, or a door or window on the street. That seems like a no-brainer. The other one that struck me as not so bad is having, some sort of an authorized by resolution of the committee, by also a blanket special use permission to have an outdoor cash register. The mechanics of how that is implemented is going to be very important, but I don't know that you need to police that at the township committee level as much, or the board level. Like somebody said, people do it already. The hardware stores I see are doing it already. The paint stores, that sounds like it. I think I've seen that too. Having a cash register outdoors, if the committee allows it by a special use permit till the end of the year or for a couple of months, we can watch it, see how bad it is. If they're really bad, the police can help them out or something like that. So that seems like, I wouldn't make people come to this township committee to have a cash register outside. I mean, that's overkill.
So Tom, you're talking about a general permit where we basically would let everybody know you can have this permit.
But it's called a special use permit. That makes it temporary. It's not zoning. It's not the planning board. It's not a site plan approval. It really is temporary. If you want to put specific conditions on it, you put it on it. But it's going to be necessary, and it's going to be convenient and good. And like Paul says, you could also issue those pickup ones to the shopping centers for parking lot pickup with designated spaces with a cone even, or with, something simple. It doesn't have to be painted, like people will figure it out. And,
I could, first off, I just want to note, Anna, that Tom started out by saying it wasn't a horrible idea. And as he talked his way through it, it became a really great idea. So I think it was a compliment, Anna. So it didn't start off that way, but it ended up there. I think, and I agree, I think that's also, those are great ideas. Do this as general resolutions, apply them across the town. The one thing I would hold back on the shopping center, because I think that does require engineering. I think, I would want Paul or Steve and Steve Dill and the fire guys to make sure that they're comfortable, because want to make sure that those spaces are not blocking or preventing any, or posing any safety issues. Just talk. Rich, just go ahead.
Is the, my question, going back to the general purposes of planning, if we talk about intensity for a second, Paul, Frank, do you think there's any unintended consequences here? If we have a huge shopping center like the King Shopping Center or the Somerset Hills Shopping Center, where now their flow tends to be more transient, I can imagine a situation where we have more and more people queuing to get into traffic down at our illustrious, Pluckerman intersection, and creating different problems down there. So with respect to, a shopping center coming to us with some master proposal to allow for all this carry out and, pickup kind of services, could we potentially have a queuing issue with people trying to get out of that lot, entering into traffic at a greater volume? I'm just concerned that there may be some unintended consequences with respect to, changing the way we do business.
Well, I think, Rich, there is a change to the way the business is going to be done. And if we consolidate where all those pickups occur, then we can manage where that change occurs. If we don't, and the governor says, okay, everybody can do curbside pickup, then we have 12 stores doing curbside pickup haphazardly, and we can potentially have a mess. If we consolidate and control it, and it's done as a special use permit for the shopping center, then I think that is the mechanism. It gets reviewed, we look at it, and we have something that we're pretty certain it's going to work. And at the end of the day, it's not permanent. So if it starts to become an issue, we can deal with it. It's not like a site plan approval or
100%
variance.
correct, because the reason I was going to get all my signs was to go to Gary's, and they did not have designated pickup areas. So all the cars were lined up along the curb so that you could get to the point where you told the girl who you were, she went and got your order. Where across the street, when I got my ShopRite order, there were only 4 spots, but you pulled in, you text in, I'm in spot number 4, popped my trunk, out they came and put it in. So one way, completely disastrous because the cars were lined up all along the curb, which creates a problem. The other is 100% the way to go because as long as there's spots where people can go for that pickup, then we're not blocking the curbs, we're not getting in the way, it's not going to become a traffic nightmare.
But in the shopping center, I agree, Janine, but in the shopping centers, we have the critical concern about the fire lane. And I just wonder if in both cases, is there an opportunity for a backdoor pickup where you just drive up to the back door and they come out?
Well, I think the back of the building is a fire
in
lane.
Somerset Shopping Center.
Yeah, but
I actually think the best idea I heard tonight regarding that was the numbered parking slots. I mean, each business could have 4 slots for their customers. They line them up, they use those slots, they bring their stuff out after they text their goods, and then they're gone. Then you don't have the queuing and you don't have the fire lane issue.
Yeah, you're right, Scott. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, Scott, it really worked well. You just pulled up, and when I got there, the 4 spots were taken. I went and I parked somewhere else. As soon as one of the other spots was open, I pulled up and I was able to get my spot. But Gary's, I could see how it was totally going to become a nightmare because everybody was just in the fire lane on the curbside waiting for the girl to come to their car.
Yeah.
She was able to deliver a keg to your car just like that?
It was amazing to watch her carry the keg by herself, actually. But yeah.
The liquor store by me uses numbered parking stalls, but the people out here don't drink like they do in Bernardsville.
2 guys in masks and capes came out with my keg.
Oh, you're talking about the Chester ShopRite? Chester ShopRite Liquors?
Yeah. Actually, it's in Mansfield.
Oh, down. Oh, way down.
King in Mansfield, yeah.
Okay. They drink heavier in Mansfield, I'm sure.
Larry, since
This is Tom again.
So Larry,
most of the
Go ahead, Anna.
Wait,
I was going to say, since most of the businesses are in those two shopping centers, maybe it's worth communicating to those two owners, since there are only two of them, that we'd be open to this sort of like stalled parking if they gave us a proposal. Right, not us. Again, you.
No. I got you. So
Yeah.
Tim, you're going to reach out to, is it Skankarella? Is that who owns it?
Yes.
Yes, Mike Scancarella.
yes, it
All
is.
right, so you're going to reach out to Skankarella and Paul, I do believe Colliers, they're the manager or management company for the Kings.
I'm not sure, but we can easily find out who it is. They have permits in all the time.
Yeah, because when their
That was
canopy
Levin.
collapsed, I know.
It's not Levin Management?
It was Levin. I don't know if it still is
Well,
or not.
I think one
Levin
group was
changed.
doing leasing, and I think another group was doing management. I don't know.
We'll figure it out. That's easy.
Yeah.
Larry, this is Tom, and Paul, also everybody. On the two shopping centers, if you wanted to, you could issue a special use permit subject to Paul and Joe and the fire official approving the details, so that you don't have to wait for another township committee meeting just to allow the good type of pickup. Okay. I don't think it's any kind of problem from a zoning perspective or density or intensity perspective, Rich, because that's something the police can also help make alleviate and make sure it doesn't become a permanent problem. The queuing of cars or the too many cars. I really don't think that's going to be a problem. But Frank raises a good point, or somebody raised a good point about you can't do it in the fire lanes, and that would have to continue to be protected.
You might want to give that credit to Anna, since she took the other credit away from her.
Anna gets all the credit tonight.
That was Scott.
Any credit, it's fine.
Any? So the other thing I wondered if everybody wanted to think about, and you, Larry, whether you'd ever, if it remotely possible, to get permission to use the school parking lot for overflow parking for Bedminster Village for free, I mean, and I know it's always hard with the Board of Ed, but it's going to be closed. It's not that far from the restaurants and shops if it was needed, and we may get a lot of outdoor dining and outdoor activity in the summertime. So if you had overflow parking, even though walking distance, it might be very functional and useful.
I think that's a good idea too. That you've got the two parking lots. You've got the school parking lot, then you've got the we call it the auxiliary or overflow parking lot for the school right there. Unfortunately, you've got that fence up, so it doesn't lead directly onto Somerville Road, which is a shame. But that
Larry, maybe we do something about the fence.
Rich, Colin, what are you guys doing tonight?
No problem.
We can do it.
Maybe we can get Brian Haggerty.
It's like leading the horse into the dean's office.
I got the bolt cutters.
Let's go.
How about
Larry, that was the other thing I put in my email to you, was that with the proposal of graduations taking places in cars, so obviously we have to assume that certain things will be allowed if they're in cars or in parking lots, and since we don't have a lot of those larger areas, our fields may also be something that at some point are requested, possibly even for the Bedminster School graduation. They could possibly go to, one of the corporations across the street, but I mean, you can certainly use River Road if they can come up with a way to, have the audio, we at least have the space that could provide certain things. If that's
Right.
the way certain things go.
I think that can work, but I'm going to come back to Rich's point earlier. That issue is probably more a TC centric issue, not necessarily for the land use board, but yeah, that's definitely something that we should that the TC should consider.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing, the nature of all this stuff, in my mind, should be temporary. That sooner, hopefully, rather than later, we're back to normal. Hopefully, that's by the fall at the least. So any of these, temporary, use permits should be very short term in my mind. And you always have the option to extend them another 60 days, another 30 days, whatever the heck you want to do. But I think the longer they're in place, the greater the expectation is that they will become a permanent change. Not to preempt any permanent changes, because there may actually be some cultural things that we have to consider. For example, for a generation, we've been dead set against drive-through. Maybe we want to look at the master plan and consider, drive-through under certain circumstances, as part of
I never really understood that here.
What?
Never really understood that, why we didn't have a drive-through, like that Burger King was built for it, why they could never get it approved, why it wasn't allowed.
I agree with you 100%, Scott. But so,
on a going forward basis,
my thought is just to make sure that they're as temporary as possible.
On a going forward basis, we may need to see more drive-through facilities. If this really doesn't change, or if it comes back in another form or whatever, if this is the way we're going to live, maybe drive-throughs need to be rethought.
God forbid, Frank.
Yeah, really.
And in that respect, they need to be rethought carefully, because all you have to do is look at two examples. One of them is the Chick-fil-A down on Route 10 in Morris Plains that has 40 to 60 cars in the queue all day, every day, except for Sunday. And then you have the new drive-through Starbucks in Chester, which backs out on a Route 206 routinely. Never thought it would possibly happen. But with all this going on, that's how many people are in the drive-through lane.
It backs up to 206 because it doesn't.
Yes, it backs out onto 206.
Doesn't it go the other way around?
No. I wanted them to go around the backside of the building, and they said, no, we can't possibly do it. It'll be fine. We have plenty of stacking space. And the first day they were open, it backed out on the 206.
Yeah, I saw not the first day, but maybe the second or third day. But yeah, there was a line. I didn't realize it came to the highway though. It's crazy.
Need a Krispy Kreme now.
Krispy Kreme and a Chick-fil-A.
So Larry, what else? Can you put a Chick-fil-A in there, Paul?
Larry, what else are you hoping to accomplish tonight?
Well, if there were any other ideas, right? So sidewalk, I was thinking sidewalk sales, which are once again another special use permit. But also if there's others that we haven't considered, like what else is sort of in the planning board type application, the planning board type consideration that we haven't thought of, like
Larry,
please go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, I have to go through a business registration every year. So there's a list. There's got to be a list somewhere. Joe Haggerty or Janine would know that there's a business registration list of all the different businesses in Bedminster. And if you or some committee had access to that list, we have a very finite number of businesses. It's not the biggest town in the world. We could probably solve some of these issues just by looking at how many pizza places do we have, how many nail places do we have, how many whatevers, and decide and think about a strategy for each one of those businesses in terms of providing a special use permit. So I think that list is probably somewhere.
Fire prevention does. That's who does your business registration, Lou. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
And fire prevention definitely does. And we could certainly go through the list. The only thing is, I think things like nails, hair salons, gyms, I don't know if we're going to be able to help those. I mean, those are going to be up
Well,
to
I
the Board of the
understand.
Health. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be a spacing issue, but I certainly don't think it's something they can take outside.
No, you're
Well,
absolutely
I'm saying
right.
that they can.
we're not just talking about right now. We're talking about right now and what may be coming down the road as we look. Eventually, those personal services are they're going to have to open. And I'm not sure what capacity or what that's going to look like, but eventually they're going to open.
They will, I'm sure it'll just be, you know, they won't be allowed to have as many people. It'll have to be distancing. I just meant that I don't know that there's any sort of outside signage we can help them with, but, you know, anything outside that they could possibly do.
Larry, what if you expanded, like?
I didn't really expect to use those as examples. The idea is that if we can get the list together, then we can decide if there's other issues we're not even thinking about. Because there are people on that list that we may not even consider in this meeting at all.
You're right. You're right.
The types of businesses.
Larry, you're about ready to open the farmer's market again, right?
We are opening. So let me just give a real quick. One of the things that this same assignment is tasked to the farmer's market, which Colin and I also, you know, run pretty much. And one of the things that we're going to try to do with the farmer's market, and Colin already reached out to Design Appliances, is to maybe once a week or once to give Designer Appliances a spot at the market, not necessarily to sell, but to show, hey, here's our line of barbecues, and then maybe offer that same opportunity to Riccardi's or Lamington, whatever they're called these days, or
Why
whoever.
couldn't you do the nail salon and the haircut place outdoors on a Saturday morning?
Rich, the last year, the barbers from Far Hills asked me if they could participate at the farmers market. And last year I was like, come on, no way. But guess what?
You would never consider it, but for now, maybe it is something you would consider.
The new normal strikes
And
again.
you're right that, you know, last year it was Tom from Far Hills Barbershop. It was Tom and Matt. They're like, hey, why don't you let us in at the farmer's market? I was like, oh, come on. You don't want to be there.
And maybe we don't do it as frequently as the farmer's market, but I'm thinking like, you know, as we're brainstorming here, if we did them once a month, kind of, you know, like we do for Fall Fest kind of thing. If we did a once a month, you know, music thing at River Road Park, and you had people, you know, under tents with a keg of beer, properly spaced, et cetera, et cetera. Now it becomes an opportunity for, you know, some of the different, you know, bars and restaurants to serve their food, and it becomes like a, you know, monthly block party.
So for the farmer's market, I did reach out to Delicious Heights. So for those of you who may not know, Delicious Heights showed up twice? Was it 3 times or twice? So twice last year at the farmer's market, and they were doing made to order egg sandwiches that were great. They were getting their eggs from one of the local farms, and they were doing egg sandwiches that were fantastic. They did great. And I called them up and said, well, actually it was an email saying, look, farmer's market is getting ready to go. If you Delicious Heights want to come, there's that opportunity for you to do what you did last year. Once again, you're not going to make a ton of, you know, they're not necessarily going to make a ton of money, but it's a reminder that they're still around. And by the way, we will have music on opening day. That's June 6th. So Greg Brown and Jason Rich will be playing at the farmer's market on June 6th, socially distant. And on booze, we should be having, well, John Coates from Environmental. I believe he's got all his approvals. We approved his sign just, you know, a couple days ago. He is, he should be selling a cider at the market. And we just found out just this week that Sky Acres, the vineyard in Pottersville in Bedminster, will also be at the farmer's market. So we're trying to use the farmer's market to, you know, if we can fit some of those businesses in, have at it. And I think
I should have known you already thought about this shit, Larry.
But we can expand it. Like, so just as we're going to designer appliances, they may not have the ability or even under the executive order to sell, but this gives them a platform to show off what they can do. And frankly,
Gives them exposure.
Any of the Bedminster retail,
Yeah.
come on down.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure who else this would be, applicable to, but yeah. I mean, someone said that Urban Cottage in Peapack wanted to come in to the farmer's market. And I said, no, frankly, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it for Bedminster businesses, not other towns.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, Larry, Designer Appliances were very appreciative of the outreach. And they're like, yeah, we'd love to do something. Hey, maybe we can grill out. So again, it's an example of using their product. And I said, look, if you can get the Board of Health approvals, we'd love for you to do it. So it's a great use example.
Yeah. So if there's, this same assignment is going to every board and commission. Once again, right now we're talking about it being expansive. Board of Health, Colin, I'm going to imagine is, might tamp down on some of the exuberance. But yeah, no, if there were other opportunities throughout the town, we should identify them and pursue them. So Janine, how those notes going? Because we're going to need them for Monday.
Let's see. I'm sloppy. I've got about 6 pages.
And if you want Tom to just summarize those, the general resolution he discussed, and those 2 other general resolutions, because that would be great to present to the Township Committee for Monday. I mean, even if we don't have the resolutions ready to go, we could certainly tee them up.
Okay, so Tom's going to come up with like the general resolutions that we could possibly move forward with regarding the curbing, the signs, things that people would not have to come to us for because they would be generally approved for the 90, 120, whatever days you decide upon.
Right. So one is the resolution for the general special use permit for the signs. One would be the special use permit general for cash register. And then would be for the shopping centers to have a general resolution for those 2 shopping centers, subject to review and approval by engineering and fire safety.
Mm-hmm.
What about the Courtyard Shopping Center?
Oh yeah.
Courtyard Shopping Center.
Yes, them too. It's funny, I think of Little Pickles and then I don't think of anyone else there. Other than, who else is in there? Is there like a little gift shop? I don't even.
There's a little jeweler, there's the post office, there's La Pizzeria Luna Rosa, there's a chiropractor, there's a travel agent, there's a nail salon.
There's an optician.
Yeah.
There's quite a few
things. You can get a back adjustment outdoors.
Dr. Siegel, he rocks.
Oh,
yeah.
That's where.
There's also a jeweler there, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah, the jeweler has a little.
Yeah, so look, if a jeweler or, whether it is Sims, well, I don't think Sims wanted to bring its stuff there, but, if someone, a little gift shop, is that the jewelry store or is there a different gift shop?
In the Courtyard there's a jeweler. Yeah.
I mean, if they want to show up at the farmer's market, hey, this is what we got. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Hey guys, anybody know what's going on with Sims? They didn't do their landscaping this spring. I'm wondering if they're like going out of business.
No, they're not. It's just limited. She's my next door neighbor. And she just had limited issues this year. But in fact, she went to work today dressed as opening, so, so to speak.
I missed the tulips, Carol.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you live, that's Sarah that you live next to?
Yes, right, yes.
Very nice.
Yeah, lovely person, yes. Mm-hmm.
But that would, I'm not sure if they're maybe, Carly may want to mention it to Sarah to see if
I
there's.
certainly will. I will mention it to her, and I'll mention it to Dawn. She's also my neighbor, the Blooms. She has things as well, the gift shop,
Are flower shops, are they considered essential or?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the funerals, they're doing big funeral business. They're lost their wedding business and graduation and all that kind, but they do have tremendous funeral business is what they're really living on. Unfortunately, but that's what they're doing. Mother's Day, of course, they had lots of flowers for Mother's Day and Easter. They're surviving.
So for our business owners here, so Scott and Tim, Lou, is there anything we're missing? And Anna, you've certainly taken businesses through the opening. Is there anything that that we could do that we, once again, from the planning, operation of a piece of property, anything that we could also throw into the mix here?
My business, commercial property and then distribution really I don't have any needs there. But I'll tell you what, I'm selling a hell of a lot of infrared thermometers and Purell. That's more of a health department thing, but they're going to need them. I'm finding Essex County College just bought 150 infrared thermometers. All the retail establishments are buying them. So that's something maybe you could talk to the health department about that. That's going to be a need for these guys.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, so looking at the Executive Order 142, as these stores start opening, even if they're doing curbside pickup, they're supposed to be providing, infection control practices for their employees, sanitization materials.
Well, the PPE, even for a business like mine, I'm in and out of offices all day, and the first thing I do is I touch the keyboard and the mouse that everybody else in the office touches every day. So it's about gloves, it's about the mask, it's about bringing in the wipes and wiping everything down before I start, wiping it down again before I leave, and then trashing that stuff as I'm walking out the door. And that gets expensive. It's an expense I never thought about before this whole thing. But
interesting. Yeah. Our new way of life.
Of course, we do that every day in my office, and I really like Tim's idea. If we can have people have access to thermal thermometers, because we use them every day. Every person that walks through the door has to have their temperature checked, and so if we can just give resources and access for business owners so they know where to get some of this stuff.
He might have a spot at the farmer's market when he's not waving his flag. He may be selling digital thermometers there. He might have a little booth himself.
Is that a public service space?
He'll charge me.
Just make sure they're the digital thermometers, buddy. We don't need any of that other stuff going on.
Bend over.
Well, I think we covered a lot today, and you guys did a great job. You took your homework serious.
All right. Anybody else from the board? I don't know if we have anybody from the outside. Does anybody join us at all, Janine?
The only ones who joined us left. So.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Anybody else from the board?
Carol, I have one more thing, Carol.
Yeah, go ahead.
How about this idea? I don't know if it's workable or not, but how about a business like Panettiere, who can't have a lot of access, be able to move their location temporarily and or rent space from some other business in town that does have access, that doesn't need it? For example, a jewelry store that, I'm just using as an example, that doesn't need curbside pickup, but Panettiere could sell their stuff in front of the jewelry store. Is that an idea that is good or bad in terms of moving your location or temporarily using other locations for your goods and services?
Moving is usually very expensive.
No,
And-
not moving, not physically moving, just like if you were to be able to go to the park during, the farmer's market, you could also just during the week use someone else's space, parking lot or business area to do your business.
The only problem with that, Lou, is, and pretty much, I mean, unless you're offering up something that's Bedminster owned, you're talking about properties that are owned by other people, and they're the ones who are going to have the yay or nay on whether Planetaries is now using King's shopping market, and I don't think that's going to work. I mean, unless it's a Bedminster property, there's no way that we can say, yeah, go ahead and do that. We're going to be getting in a lot of trouble with the other landlords.
No. I'm saying, are we going to allow it if they have already made an arrangement with some other landlord or some other business? Larry, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, so
if you can farmer's market.
And let's use
I'll
Sims.
chime in here.
Let's use Sims as the example, right? So, we'll just use Sims because we were just talking about it. So, could Planetaries deliver like 30 pizzas and sell pizzas at a Planetaries or something else along those lines? Or another business that may be dormant or nothing. Or for example, could Planetaries use the Burger King parking lot to sell pizzas?
That's what I'm saying.
But we don't own the Burger King parking lot.
We allow it.
Yeah, so that's Lou's question. Is that something that
we could allow?
frankly,
I think it's a special use permit. It's another special use permit where the owner of Burger King has a lease with whomever is going to use their parking lot, and then a special use permit is granted for that. Again,
It's sort of like a sublease. It's a sublease with a special permit.
Yeah.
I guess.
I would think liability insurance and all kinds of other things come into play too once you start setting up a retail outfit in a piece of property that you're not licensed to do business in.
Well, it sounds like a sublease.
And I get that, Scott. I get that there's a lot of complications, but I think Lou's question is that something within the realm of possibility that the town could approve? Burger King is sitting there vacant. Frankly, as far as I don't know, maybe even Scancarella even owns it. I know he owns a bunch of other stuff, I thought. If they wanted to do it, is that something that we could do under a special use permit? I don't know. Paul, you seem.
It sounds reasonable. I mean, it would be a sublease, basically. Burger King would sublease it to whoever, and then they'd ask for a special permit, it sounds like to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I don't know who gets that idea to actually do that, but.
George has a parking lot.
George does?
Well, look, I think the point is that the township should do nothing to impede, the public's right to do what they want to make their business thrive, as long as it's not too bad. We're here, people are pretty resourceful. They'll figure out what they need to do to make things work, and we can support it, hopefully, not put up roads.
Yeah, as long as there's safety issues and,
Common sense. Like, I think the best thing is, I think it was Minnesota. Did you see what the restaurant did in Minnesota to help?
With the mannequins? The
mannequins? No, the blow-up dolls.
Oh, the blow-up dolls.
It's great. They dress them up. I mean, people are having fun with it, so.
Yeah, I saw the restaurant where they had the mannequins, and they had mannequins sitting at the table, so the restaurant looked full, and yet, they had the distancing going on.
Yeah,
so
this one had the blow-up dolls with different outfits on.
Similar
Well,
idea.
one with shower curtains around the tables.
Oh, great. All right. Does anybody else have any more suggestions here? If not, I think we are basically done with our meeting.
To adjourn?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Paul, we don't have anything else lined up, do we have?
June 4th, we have Rylocate.
Yeah,
We do.
that's what we have coming up as our next hearing is June 1st.
Okay.
This was a really
BOA or
creative
planning
meeting
board?
tonight. This was awesome. Everybody really offered up a lot of good ideas.
Thanks, Frank.
Is, just real quick, is Rylocade BOA or planning board?
BOA,
BOA.
Paul, say it one more time for him.
Board of Adjustment.
There you go.
And Colin, what's the status, well, maybe, and Paul will know this too, with Bedminster Farms and the health department?
Well, they have to have the meeting at the Board of Health, and they just have not done yet. I don't know if the Board of Health is going to virtual meeting or not.
They're going to have it next Thursday.
Oh, okay.
And so what's the, Paul, can you give us the advance on?
Yeah, they need relief from the ordinance in order to be able to get the number of lots they want. And the Board of Health has not been very lenient with getting relief for subdivisions.
Joe's letter was about 7 pages long. There's a lot there.
Was it perk issues or what?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Board of Health is not lenient on those issues at all.
I was on the Board of Health, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as they should.
Yep.
How, well, I guess if the letter's already been issued, then it's a public doc. So how, is it 1 unit's got to go, 2 units, 3 units?
One, maybe 2. You have to reconfigure the lot lines, and there's a certain number of disposal fields, and you've got a primary and reserve, and they don't all meet all the setbacks, and that's what the problem is. So you'd have to eliminate some lot lines and consolidate the lots to get the primary and reserve on the lots.
How many units was Bedminster Farms as originally proposed? Or as proposed, or as submitted, really?
You've asked me that a dozen times, and I can never remember what the number is.
I think it's 7 in the latest iteration.
7, right?
Yes, 7.
That's what I saw.
And if they've got to lose at least 1.
At least.
Yeah. All right.
Are there plans kicking around for Rylocate?
Yeah, new ones were just submitted today. They made some modifications to it, and I'm thinking that Janine is probably going to start distributing those pretty soon.
Okay.
They will be going out in the email tomorrow morning. How's that?
Oh, right on cue.
That sounds fast enough. Okay.
So I will also say, I mean, I know we talked about this last week, but we actually had an internal meeting at Wilentz with the real estate redevelopment and my environmental team. And we were talking about participation on planning boards and other Zoom meetings. And there was consensus that Zoom is working really well for sharing those documents, having the engineers and planners and architects walk the way through documents, showing, look at this, look at that, that it's actually better. It's a better experience because you can see the plans directly and you can have them manipulated on screen, as opposed to, someone showing you a poster that you can't really see, and then you've got everyone at the dais is flipping through their sheets. So, just a general comment thrown out there.
Yes, I thought our meeting last week went very well, and I was very pleased with it, considering it was our first attempt. So, yeah, congratulations to everybody.
I think one of the things for long-term planning from an IT perspective for the township is, can we do something with some either Chromebooks or iPads or something, put them on the dais, and then basically broadcast the maps, presentations, so that every member has access and can have the experience that we had last week.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we're going to work on that.
Sounds
Certainly
good.
doable.
It sounds very good. Okay, if there's nothing else, do we hear a motion to
Motion to adjourn.
adjourn?
Second? Lou, you're waving at me. I got it.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Good night, all.
Bye-bye.